Because for 54 years, they were trying to get Roe v. Wade terminated, and I did it. And I'm proud to have done it. Historic action to protect the unborn, like nobody has ever done. Nobody has ever done it.
Trump gave us a preview of the final push. He was speaking last night, talked about getting rid of Roe, how everyone's happy about that. We know from all of the turnout in the special elections that that is not true.
But you said if it gets between Donald Trump and Joe Biden again, you will vote for who?
I will vote for President Biden. I have 5 grandchildren, 4 of them are girls, and I'm very concerned about women's issues and democracy.
Forcing school prayer, something hugely unpopular. You can talk about migrants streaming down Stake Mountain. Hold on. No, you're talking about you want to win the election, right? You don't want to just win the primary.
But I'm not pleased with the enthusiasm of the Trump base. They are going to show up, and that is what would make me nervous.
Yeah, but they showed up in 2020 and Trump lost.
I mean, they just keep offering her allies to oop, so who am I to not bring you each and every one with a dose of Scottish sarcasm?
Honestly, I'm surprised that they have this high of a threshold for humiliation. He was lying because the Russians were feeding him the disinformation. It's so embarrassing.
In the wake of Trump's most recent rally, in which he showed up over an hour and a half late, slurring his way through his speech, I mean, just imagine the coverage if Biden had this much trouble saying evangelical.
Love of Christ, the stories of the Holy Bible, and the voices of famed evangelical people and evangelists like
evangelical, Donnie. You know, that religious group that loves you even though you could not quote a single passage from the Bible.
You're going to believe in God because God is here and God is watching. God is watching. And God probably can't believe what he's...
I'm wondering what 1 or 2 of your most favored Bible verses are and why.
I wouldn't want to get into it because to me that's very personal. You know?
Old Testament guy or New Testament guy?
Probably equal.
But again, I couldn't care less about the gaff-offs. I want to talk about substance. And while it's hard to grasp any from Trump's ramblings, I wanted to first throw to the intro from one of his minions who touted their Project 2025 agenda, which, if you haven't heard, includes a de facto national abortion ban, puts Medicare on a path to privatization, and seeks to end marriage equality. You know, all the popular stuff.
We've been working with all of them on one project since soon after Joe Biden took the oath of office, before any conservative presidential candidates had even entered the race. As my friend and colleague Paul Dans before talked about briefly, our Project 2025 has developed a comprehensive policy agenda, but even more importantly, recruiting people, 20,000 people to go into the next administration, hopefully, to help take back this country.
Well, in response to this, Jessica Tarlov moved from her usual spot on Fox News at 5 to give a fresh panel a dose of reality on this very subject, that Donald Trump continues to brag about things that are actually wildly unpopular.
Donald Trump gave us a preview of the final push. He was speaking last night, talked about getting rid of Roe, how everyone's happy about that. We know from all of the turnout in the special elections that that is not true.
Let me do this. Donald Trump lost in 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, and last night. Wow.
Okay. Forcing school prayer, something hugely unpopular.
Freedom to worship does not end at the door at a public school, and I supported school prayer, very important, school prayer, which we unfortunately had to force into some schools. It should be very easy. You would think it would be very easy, but it wasn't, but we did it.
You can talk about migrants streaming down Stake Mountain. Hold on. No, you're talking about you want to win the election, right? You don't want to just win the primary. January 6ers are hostages. No, the hostages are in Gaza, and the Department of Education being whittled down to one person to ensure we all speak English.
In all due respect, you know, the talk that you bring up has not worked. I mean, you look at every national poll, minus Quinnipiac, President Trump is prevailing in them.
Then why is President Biden down just 1.9 points in the Real Clear Politics average? The cherry picking of polls when it is so within the margin of error. Barack Obama was down 5 to Mitt Romney.
Why isn't
was
he
President Romney? I don't remember his administration at all.
He needs a reset. He knows it. The State of the Union is supposed to be the reset. We will see that is the reset
Steak
that he
Mountain.
needs.
I can't wait to visit.
I would advise changing the rhetoric. As I'm Biden and I'm looking at this, Jessica, I'm very pleased with my fundraising. I'm pleased with my mail-in vote operation in the midterms. I'm pleased with my TikTok social media operation. But I'm not pleased with the enthusiasm of the Trump base. They are going to show up, and that is what would make me nervous.
Yeah, but they showed up in 2020 and Trump lost.
He's already dead.
Now, it's been reported that Trump plans to enact this Project 2025 on day one, and while it may be hard for him to articulate what it entails, let's actually take a closer look at who is making up this legislation.
Right now, the Heritage Foundation's 2025 Presidential Transition Project, a sprawling coalition made up of nearly 100 anti-abortion and conservative groups, is in the process of designing a far-reaching anti-abortion agenda for Trump's second term. They're drafting executive orders Trump could use to roll back abortion protections, orders that he could implement as early as day one. Under a second Trump term, federal agencies could be empowered to end telemedicine for abortion pills. They could penalize and prosecute virtual clinics that prescribe abortion pills to patients in states with a ban. Federal agencies could stop health clinics that receive federal family planning funds from advising patients of all their options, including abortion. And they could classify ingredients in abortion pills as so-called forever chemicals, which of course are subject to stricter regulations. They also want to require doctors who prescribe the pill, even for miscarriages, to collect and dispose of the aborted fetus. But there's more. Project 2025 is also pushing Trump to enforce a 19th century era law known as Comstock Act, which could not only cut access to the pills used in the majority of abortions, but access to the medical equipment used for the procedure. And of course, strict enforcement of the law could lead to criminal prosecutions of both providers and patients. And yes, they're also going after medically necessary abortions, calling on Trump to rescind Biden administration guidance that requires hospitals to offer abortions to patients experiencing medical emergencies regardless of state bans on the procedure. For many, that can be a matter of life and death.
Project 2025 plan is made up of nearly 100 anti-abortion and MAGA groups. It is in the process of designing a far-reaching anti-abortion agenda for Trump's second term. They're literally drafting executive orders for Trump to roll back freedoms on day one.
So do not let Donald Trump fool you with the so-called moderate talk on abortion, because a second Trump term, regardless of the makeup of the Congress or the courts, would be disastrous for the future of reproductive rights in this country. Come 2025, with the stroke of a pen this fast, the man responsible for the fall of Roe could go even further, gutting what's left of abortion access in the U.S.
Now, do you understand why I'm so hell-bent on focusing not so much on the things that he mispronounces, but the action that he plans to take if he's allowed a second term? Honestly, they're both old. Who gives a shite? We're here to discuss which of them is likely to give more rights to an embryo than a woman.
Do you have a reaction to the Alabama Supreme Court ruling on the fact that embryos are children?
Yeah, I was all for it. We need to have more kids. We need to have an opportunity to do that. And I thought this was the right thing to do. But
IVF is used to have more children, and right now IVF services are paused at some of the clinics in Alabama. Aren't you concerned that this could impact people who are trying to have kids?
Well, that's for another conversation. People need to have that. We need more kids. We need the people to have the opportunity to have kids.
Senator, what do you say to the women right now in Alabama who no longer have access to IVF, or who will not, as a result of this ruling? What do you say to them?
Well, that's a hard one. It really is. It's really hard. Because, again, you want people to have that opportunity. And that's what I was telling her. We need more kids.
Because make no mistake, right? The latest ruling in Alabama that seeks to criminalize IVF is all a ripple effect from the Supreme Court Trump stacked with a medieval outlook that is soon to be reality across America. Roe was just the start. So while Jessica Tarlov is on hand to remind the odd viewer that slips through the cracks on Fox that the majority of Americans are actually against these decisions, it's on us to remind everyone else, because a nationwide abortion ban is firmly on the ballot in November.
Well, he can run, but he can't hide from his words. And what is coming out now, and finally in the public discourse, is the stark contrast between the president we have, the president who is committed to women's rights, something here in the state of New York we've been fighting for since the first Women's Convention in 1848. It's in our DNA to to fight for women's rights. So then contrast that with someone who, yes, take him at his word. He said he was going to stack the Supreme Court with pro-life justices. He said he was going to overturn Roe v. Wade. So why wouldn't we believe him now when he says that if he were to be elected in some doomsday scenario for our country, but if he was the next president of the United States, heaven forbid every woman in this country, regardless of what their governors are trying to do to protect them, would be washed out. They would be losing their rights. And to me, that's abhorrent. My mother fought for these rights. I fought for these rights. My daughter and my newborn baby granddaughter should have the rights that were fought for and not stripped away by a man named Donald.
Love this video? Make sure you stay up to date on the latest breaking news and all things Meidas by signing up to the MeidasTouch newsletter at MeidasTouch.com/newsletter.